You ever seen 5 adults just sitting, breathing, waiting for a command that never comes? He didn't pay them. He didn't threaten them. He didn't even ask them to stay. But they did, day after day. One woman left her job. A man stopped talking to his wife. One of them sold their house. All for him. Not because they were trapped, but because they believed they were free. His name was Elliot Rains, and he never raised his voice, never lifted a finger, never held a weapon. All he used was their minds. Elliot Rains wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He wasn't even loud. He was the kind of man who disappeared into crowds. Quiet, soft-spoken, mid-30s, clean-shaven, always polite. He lived in a tiny house outside Asheville, North Carolina, worked part-time at a bookstore, had a small garden, drank tea, never coffee. People said he was soothing. One neighbor called him emotionally eucalyptus. No one knew what that meant, but it felt accurate. Elliot didn't go out much, didn't party, didn't date, but people liked him. He listened, and he remembered your dog's name, the way you took your tea, your worst childhood fear. He made people feel seen, and that is a powerful thing. It started with small things. A barista who gave him free coffee, a mechanic who forgot to charge him, a co-worker who offered to walk his dog. No problem, Elliot, I want to. One day, his neighbor mowed his entire lawn, unasked, then trimmed the hedges, then offered to clean his gutters, all with a smile, like it was the most natural thing in the world. They never felt manipulated. They felt chosen, important. Elliot never asked. He just listened, let silence linger in the air. And somewhere in that quiet, people decided things on their own. He didn't build a cult. He built connection. Or at least, that's what it felt like. Until one of them went missing. And someone else quit their job to work on Elliot's project. Except there was no project. That's when people started asking questions. Who is Elliot Rains? And how did he get 5 people to serve him without ever telling them to? It didn't happen all at once. It never does. The first to change was Joanna, a teacher, mother too. She started showing up at Elliot's house after work, first with dinner, then groceries, then her husband's credit card. I just feel safe here, she whispered once. He listens better than my therapist. Next came Raj, an Uber driver. He started canceling rides, spending hours sitting in Elliot's garden, just in case he needed anything. He quit driving 2 weeks later, said he was reevaluating his purpose. Maya, a graphic designer, made Elliot a website, unpaid, unasked. It was elegant, minimalist, mysterious. The homepage just said, "We are seen." Bryce, an ex-Marine, offered to install a new security system, then stayed 3 nights in a row just to keep an eye on things. He said Elliot reminded him of a commanding officer, except Elliot had never served, never even raised his voice. By week 3, all 5 of them were orbiting him, running errands, repainting his house, reading his old journals like sacred texts. No one said the word leader. No one called it a group, but that's what it was. A structure. Invisible. Undeniable. Elliot didn't give instructions. He gave questions. Do you ever feel like the world is lying to you? Have you ever helped someone and felt more alive than ever? Maybe this is who you were meant to be. He didn't preach. He planted ideas, insecurities, purpose. He told Raj once, "You're more than just a driver." The next day, Raj deleted all his apps, started writing Elliot's memoirs. He told Maya, "You don't need likes to be valuable." She deleted all her social media, said she finally felt real. They weren't hypnotized. They weren't brainwashed. They were free. Or at least, they thought they were. Until someone said no. Until one of the 5 tried to leave. And then the silence around Elliot cracked. It was Joanna who asked the first real question. Just one. Quiet. Why do we never talk about our lives anymore? They were sitting in Elliot's living room. The others paused. Elliot smiled, tilted his head. "Isn't this your life now?" he asked. She didn't answer, just looked away. A flicker of something crossed her face. The next morning, she was gone. Not late, not sick, gone. Her phone? Disconnected. Her apartment? Empty. Her husband? Filed a missing persons report. But the others, Maya, Raj, Bryce, Thomas, they just smiled. She probably needed space. Raj said she was never fully aligned. Maya added, only Elliot didn't comment, just lit a candle where she used to sit. No one asked why. No one touched the flame. Bryce seemed tense after that, started double-checking doors, watching Elliot out of the corner of his eye. One night, Bryce asked, "Do you ever think maybe this isn't what we signed up for?" Elliot looked at him, not angry, just still. "Bryce," he said, "did you sign anything?" Bryce didn't answer. He never brought up again. 2 days later, Bryce told Raj. I feel lighter now, like something left me. Then he smiled, but his eyes didn't match. That night, Maya had a dream. She saw Joanna, standing at the edge of a cliff, smiling, eyes hollow, whispering something Maya couldn't hear. The next day, Maya painted a mural on Elliot's wall. It showed 5 figures, 4 in light, 1 fading into smoke. She called it alignment. No one questioned the name. No one asked about Joanna again. But the silence was no longer peaceful. It pulsed like something waiting. And Elliot, he didn't change, didn't flinch, didn't care. Or maybe he didn't need to, because whatever he was doing was working. Thomas started forgetting things. First, small stuff, where he left his keys, why he walked into a room. Then, stranger things. He couldn't remember his last name, couldn't remember the street he grew up on, couldn't remember if he had a job before Elliot. One morning, he asked Maya, "Did I ever tell you about my sister?" She looked at him, blank. "You don't have a sister, Thomas." And he believed her, even though something in his chest cracked. Maya stopped painting. Her colors turned to static. All grays and shapes. No subjects. No faces. Just spirals. Raj started writing numbers. On his arms. On the backs of receipts. Inside the cabinets. Long strings of digits. When asked what they meant, he whispered, "They're the only things that don't change." Elliot said nothing. But they began doing things without being asked. Cleaning. Cooking. Waiting. Staring. Thomas once stood outside the apartment for 3 hours. Not moving. Just waiting. When asked why, he said, "I thought he might need me to." Bryce's old desk was left untouched. Dust formed around the edges. His chair was always slightly pulled back, as if someone had just left. Joanna's name was never spoken again. Her candle still burning. They no longer spoke unless spoken to. Smiled when Elliot entered. Laughed when he laughed. Cried when he tilted his head just slightly. But no one remembered when the shift truly began. Maya once said, "I think I was always like this," then paused. Or maybe I wanted to be. Thomas drew a circle on the wall. Black ink. He called it home. Elliot watched them all. Not with pride, not with cruelty, but with quiet satisfaction. Like a gardener watching obedient vines. Wrap around the trellis exactly as planned. There were no chains, no locked doors, no screams, just soft compliance. A silence that hummed with obedience. And in that silence, they felt safe, even as they disappeared. Elliot never raised his voice. He didn't need to, because control, it doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from rhythm, repetition, routine, reward. Every morning, he praised Thomas for waking up early, even if Thomas had been up all night. That's called positive reinforcement, used in dog training. Also works on humans. He gave Maya exclusive assignments. Only you can do this. It made her feel chosen, valued. That strategic validation, used in cults and corporate teams. To Raj, he said, "You're the logical one, the anchor." Suddenly, Raj stopped asking questions. Because anchors don't question the ship they're holding. That's labeling. It creates roles. And people perform to fit them. He offered emotional intimacy, but only in pieces. Only when someone cracked. That's trauma bonding. Reward follows pain. So the brain links obedience with safety. Elliot created dependency. He paid for their food, their rent, even their hobbies. He made sure they relied on him. So questioning him felt dangerous. That's learned helplessness. The scariest part? He never asked them to stay. He just made leaving impossible to imagine. Their identities began to shift, not with commands, but with suggestion, subtle nudges. Maybe you've always liked quiet. You're not like other people. You were lost before this, remember? That's gaslighting, a manipulation of memory and truth. It fractures your reality until someone else's version becomes your own. Over time, they stopped thinking, not because they weren't smart, but because they felt safer letting Elliot think for them. Control, you see, isn't always taken. It's given, bit by bit, decision by decision, until you can't remember the last time you said no. And this doesn't just happen in stories. It happens in real life, in relationships, in offices, in families, in friendships. The red flags aren't always red. Sometimes they're pastel, warm, safe, and by the time you notice, you're already gone. It started with a single sentence. Maya was journaling when she wrote, "I've always loved being useful." Then she paused, stared at the words. Had she, or had someone else loved her being useful? She couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just for herself, without permission, without praise, without Elliot. She looked around the apartment. Every item was chosen by him. Every painting, every book, even the tea she drank. He introduced it. She called Thomas. His voice cracked when he said, "Do you ever feel like we lost something?" Thomas had started therapy, quietly, without telling the group. He said he cried the first time the therapist asked, "What do you want?" Because he didn't know. He realized he hadn't decided anything in years. Raj had moved out already. No goodbye, no explanation, just vanished. They later found his notebook, pages filled with diagrams, flowcharts of their interactions. One line stood out, "I think we mistook direction for connection." Meanwhile, Elliot disappeared. He didn't argue, didn't defend. He just smiled, as if they'd passed the final test, or failed it. Maya stopped journaling for weeks, too afraid to hear her own voice, until one morning she wrote, "I think I'm real," and closed the book tightly, but healing wasn't clean. Thomas still dreams in Elliot's voice. Maya flinches when someone praises her too quickly. Raj doesn't reply to messages. Sometimes freedom feels like grief, like realizing the house you loved was actually a prison. But step by step, they reclaimed their stories. One cooked a new meal. One walked without headphones. One deleted every file Elliot ever gave them. And in those tiny rebellions, they began to find themselves. Not who they were before, but who they could become after. What if the voice in your head wasn't yours? What if every decision you're proud of was never really your decision? That's how it works. Not with force, not with fear, but with comfort, praise, support. You want to belong. So someone shows you how. You want to feel useful. So someone tells you what to do. You want to grow. So someone gives you a mirror, one that reflects them. And slowly, gently, you forget your own shape. Elliot didn't need to lie. He just needed to listen, repeat, reframe, until their thoughts felt like his, and his voice felt like truth. But here's the part that stays with you. They let him, not because they were weak, but because they were human. We all want guidance, a map, a leader, especially when life feels blurred. But here's the question you have to ask. Who's been guiding you? Whose beliefs echo in your mind at 2 a.m.? And are you living your truth, or just repeating someone else's programming? This isn't just about Elliot. It's about the mentors we idolize, the friends we surrender to, the gurus we trust too blindly, the patterns we call growth. That may actually be control. So today, pause, question, reclaim, drop a comment. What's one belief you were given that you're ready to unlearn? Because your voice matters, your story matters, and your mind should belong to no one but you. Subscribe for more stories that expose the unseen layers of power, psychology, and identity. Hit the bell. We're not done exploring the mind. Not even close.